Hi there, I'm Dustin Warnke and welcome to this edition of Gun Tales. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite military surplus rifles, and that's going to be the SKS semi-automatic, also known as the Semenov. The Semenov was created in 1943 and put into service late in World War II as a semi-automatic intermediate range rifle. And this fires the famous or infamous, if you want to call it, 7.62 by 39 cartridge, and this is still made today obviously for a gun that everybody's familiar with, and that's the AK-47. Today we're going to talk about a couple of differences between those two guns, the SKS and the AK-47. They share a lot of similarities, such as the sling that they take, and but they're very different in a lot of regards of the gas system that they use and so on and so forth. Now, this particular SKS that I have is a Chinese version. Another SKS that I own that I kind of did a sporterization job, but nothing that's a custom permanent sporterization job, just a custom job of doing a kind of black rifle setup on it. It's a Russian SKS. And then you'll also find on the market Yugoslavian SKSs. So again, the three are Russian, Yugoslavian, and Chinese. And all were imported by the droves, by the hundreds of thousands back in the 90s and then up through our current time today. And basically were constantly, being reintroduced, and were up to about $100 you can get a Chinese SKS for back in the day. Now, this particular gun I picked up for $125 from a pawn shop a few years ago, and then it turned out it was a collectible SKS, which I've not done anything to permanently alter its value. It normally has a regular receiver cover, not one that has this compact scope on it, but it's a DP marked SKS, and that means most likely it was used in Pakistani military police service, which is what I love about collecting military surplus rifles. You never know what kind of history is going to come with this gun. So I've kept this in its original stock, in its original form. Most likely it was used back in the 70s in Pakistan, and just is really cool. Some other lesser known models you run into will be the Albanian and the Romanian SKSs, but the ones that you're going to see at gun shows and in the used gun market for the most part are going to be the Chinese, Russian, and the Yugoslavian SKSs. And you'll find with the Yugoslavians you even have some with and without a extendable grenade launcher attachment. And you can actually buy all kinds of aftermarket parts for target shooting golf balls or dummy grenades or anything like that, just by shooting blanks inside the rifle barrel and disabling the gas system. So there's all kinds of different usable things that you can do with these guns. The thing I love about them is that they're cheap to shoot, because they shoot the same ammunition as the AK-47, which is a 7.62 by 39 ammunition. You can find cases and cases of that ammunition for between $100 and $200, and they come in little sub boxes. Wolf and Silver Bear, Brown Bear, all these Russian manufacturers and Eastern Bloc kind of manufacturers probably have the best deal going on buying surplus ammunition and commercial surplus ammunition, as I call it. Another thing you can do is at many gun shows you will find this military surplus ammunition that's strictly for military surplus. I don't know when this was manufactured, because I cannot read Russian or whatever language this particular cartridge is in, and most likely you probably can't at home unless you're from one of these countries. But this is a little box that I have of 15 rounds inside here, that's 7.62 by 39 ammunition, and this is military surplus. Most likely this is all going to be corrosive, and as I've talked about before on the show, whenever you clean a rifle after shooting corrosive military surplus ammunition, two things that you need to happen. Before you clean the gun normally, you need to run a patch, and in this case even a bore snake, down the barrel, and use a coated cleaning rod, one-piece cleaning rod, down the barrel, and just run a quick patch of ammonia mixed 50-50 with water down that barrel. And then also the bolt face, which is right in here, semi-automatic. You can't take the bolt out of this rifle very easily without removing the whole receiver cover, so you can just clean that with a Q-tip with some of that solution. And it's not a bad idea also, even though this is kind of a dry area up here in your gas system, to just pop off this little gas tube area here and clean the handguard gas tube area as well with a solution of this, and then clean your gun and oil it like you normally would clean and oil a firearm after that. You want to neutralize the corrosive salts in that. The Russian SKS that I have that I'm going to show you next had a owner of it that did not know about cleaning a rifle like that, and when I purchased that gun, it was a 1951 Russian SKS that I'm going to show you next that I've got in the sporterization setup, and that gun was completely from barrel to breech, completely rusted. And thank goodness that was a year, 1951 was a year that the Russians started chroming those rifles, because oh my gosh, that would have been a hot mess if I would not have been able to catch that and been able to still, purchase that gun at $150, which I did a few years ago, and it not clean up properly, because without that chrome lining in there, it would have been a mess to be able to get all that rust and everything like that out of there. So whenever you clean your gun after shooting military surplus ammunition, that's a consideration to make. Now, you can find stripper clips on the market. They usually come in packs of 10. You can use these for all kinds of different ammunition, full metal jacket, hollow point. You also have soft point ammunition, which I showed you earlier. And the gun that I use to hunt with typically is this particular setup, because it's got a fixed 10-round magazine. It's not so cumbersome to walk outdoors with a big old 40-round magazine, banana magazine, if you will. And basically, the nice thing I like about this is it's easy to carry, and I can carry my ammunition just in my pocket or however on these stripper clips, which is nice. Bullet of choice, if you're using bullets for coyotes, so on and so forth, I still prefer the Russian-made stuff. Not that the American-made stuff is that scary or anything like that, but basically the Russian stuff tends to shoot and feed a little bit better, and just Silver Bear or Monarch is a local brand that we have here in our sporting goods stores in Central Texas that make this. This is all Serbian or Russian made, and this actual is made in Russia, believe it or not. And Wolf also makes a 7.62x39 154 grain soft point, and I love that round for hog hunting because it's on par ballistically with a 30-30. Because this is a smaller cartridge than a standard full high power rifle cartridge. What I'm looking for is knockdown power when it gets there. Now, when you're hunting coyotes or any kind of other predator game like that, you're going to be looking at maybe 125 grain, but I try to go with the heaviest bullet possible for deer and hogs and so on and so forth. And they're a lot of fun to shoot, and they're relatively about the same weight to carry, so on and so forth, as a regular standard commercial rifle. So it's just something neat to carry and pass on to generations because they're good guns. A couple of things you look for when you buy a used SKS. I always like this in standard military configuration. This has a spike bayonet in it. It has a nice, nice good rifling on the inside of the bore. This particular Chinese SKS and a lot of the later Russian SKSs were completely chrome lined. That's just to protect from corrosive salts and corrosion, so that kind of stuff will wash through and just protect the bore. That's the main reason why chroming was done. Chroming was never really done on the Mosin Nagants or any kind of earlier World War II rifles just because it wasn't available. As a matter of fact, Yugoslavian SKSs do not have chrome lining in the barrel because they simply do not have a good deposit of chrome to use when they were manufacturing their rifles. So a good thing to look at, just like any other gun, is want to make sure the gas system's relatively clean by removing the gas tube if your seller will allow you to do that. Check the bolt face, and these guns are relatively easy to disassemble and field strip, so you can kind of check over all the parts and make sure everything's there. There's not a whole lot of moving parts, and it's similar in that way to an AK-47 because this was built on the simplicity, wartime platform that not a lot can go wrong, so not a lot of moving parts for that reason. We've got an independent gas system up here that's piston operated, and you want to check your crown and make sure there's not a lot of cleaning rod damage. A lot of the Yugoslavian and Chinese and Russian SKSs were cleaned with the old school cleaning rod, and put inside the, just with a one-piece one that's on this rifle here. I'm always going to look at the crown to see if I've got any kind of barrel damage or wear, because that's going to affect accuracy tremendously. One advantage that this gun has over the AK-47 is the fact that and most people will not disagree with me here, it's more or less inherently more accurate, because in the case of the standard SKSs, you've got a 20-inch barrel versus with the AK-47, except for the Siegas and some of the new commercial-made AK-47 platforms, you've got a 16-inch barrel. So this gun's still just as maneuverable. Just with that 4 extra inches of rifling, you typically get better inherent accuracy at 100 yards and so on and so forth. And certainly not as accurate as a lot of other guns like ARs and you know, a lot of the standard guns that we shoot today, but I can still get a good huntable accuracy group at 100 yards with this gun, with this setup especially. Myself and Mac and Prowler love to hunt with scopes. That's just the way that we like to roll. So I got a receiver cover scope. This is a tactical one that has 3 sides to it, so you can put a flashlight here or a laser or whatever and put your scope on top and do some different things. SKS and some other companies out there make scout mounts for these as well that mount right here. The only problem with mounting this on the scout mount is you've got the issue of the barrel. You got to take the gas piston off. You're going to have to remove the whole scope and everything like that. Issue with putting a scope on the back of the receiver cover is because these guns were never designed to use scopes, much like the Mosin Nagant, unless you're dealing with the sniper versions of the Mosin Nagant. For the most part, when they did put scopes on these, they drilled into the side of the stock, and that's probably the best idea to do it if you're going not the side of the stock, the side of the action, down by the receiver here. And but you know, again, something like this, I believe, will get valuable over time, and this has increased in value over time as I take it and watch the value of these go up over the years. Another thing you want to check for is just, you know, get you a receiver cover that's just completely, that'll maybe even attach here with these screws, set screws to the actual receiver itself. You'll be in good shape if you do that because there's less wiggle. But keep in mind that underneath your scope, every time you shoot, you've got that barrel that's, or that bolt that's coming back and that's going to be, you know, drawing your scope a little bit. I've had very few accuracy issues with this one, and several different companies make these type of mounts, so you'll be in good shape there. When to buy one used? Try to check for the serial numbers matching, just like I talked about in the Mosin Nagant segment. You're going to have barrel on the receiver, on the action itself. You're going to have a serial number on there. You're going to have a serial number on the bolt, serial number on the buttstock if you have one. I've got a little recoil pad on mine, and then also on the bottom of the magazine plate. If your gun's been sporterized or parts have been changed, it's not the end of the world. These are just things I look for if I'm going to buy one used at a gun show and so on and so forth. I want to check those things like the bolt. I'm going to check the action and see if that's been electro-penciled in or stamped in there. The butt plate of the original magazine, and then if there's one, a lot of times they're not serial numbered on the back, but that's another good way to check that. They even put serial numbers back in the day on the actual gas tubes themselves, on the gas piston themselves, so that's kind of neat. So that's my Chinese SKS. This is a great hunting weapon and fantastic, and I just believe in just leaving it in a military configuration and taking it hunting just like this. A lot of folks, like I said, will grind off the bayonet and take the bayonet off. I certainly am not going to use the bayonet for any hunting application, but it does not hurt the bayonet to be on there at all. So anyway, that is the Chinese SKS. All right, up next we have one of our custom creations here, and this is one of my own personal Russian SKS 1951. Like I said, this is the one that I purchased that had all kinds of corrosion on the bore because it was not cleaned correctly. All the way up to the crown and all the way down into the bolt face area. I had some serious issues getting all that stuff out, but thank goodness it was a chrome lined barrel and it flushed right out of there. But again, ammonia and water if you're going to be shooting commercial ammunition, or I'm sorry, military surplus ammunition, like the kind you find in the little boxes or paper bags and stuff like that at the gun shows. So what I have here is a Tapco T6 stock, and I've got this set up with customized handguard because trying to replace the handguard on these is tough. So what I did is just replace the whole gas tube, and then I also replaced the bottom fixed magazine with a detachable magazine. Something we need to talk about next, though, is something that a lot of folks do not worry about, and that is this. That is called what they refer to as the 10 or less rule. And the 10 or less rule is pretty much the rule that states any semi-automatic firearm of any kind, such as a Saiga, an AK-47, an SKS, anything that's semi-automatic, with any kind of detachable magazine, especially like this, when you start dealing with replacing parts like the magazine, you have to have 10 or less foreign parts. This rule is also called 922R. It's a BATF rule. Look it up online. There's a lot of different discussions, and tips and tricks and stuff like that for this. But basically what I've replaced on this gun to make it 100% 922R and 10 or less compliant is the gas tube area up here, as well as the stock, which counts for, I believe, 3 parts. The pistol grips counts for a part. The magazine that's detachable itself counts for 1, 2, 3 parts. Butt plate, spring, and then the actual magazine body itself counts for 3 parts. And those are the rules in that regard. Now, not every state's going to be as enforceable on those rules. I just like to be obeying the law and be compliant in any way, shape, or form that I can. This particular gun I got for a steal of a deal. They had gone up to about $300 to $400, which you'll find a Russian SKS for, and the guy did not know what he had and sold this to me for $150 with 200 rounds of surplus ammunition. That was an awesome deal. So you can still find good deals like this. If you're going to sporterize and want an inexpensive black rifle, this is a good way to start. The kit and sporterization and all this other stuff is completely custom, but also not undoable. I can go back through and turn this back into bone stock firearm again in about 10 minutes and put it as original Russian SKS stock and everything else. I left the bayonet on it. I bought a stock that had a little bayonet cut on it, and it's a fantastic firearm. I love shooting this. One quick word about magazines. I did not shoot detachable magazines in any of my SKSs until I found the Tapco 20 round magazine. This particular magazine will hold 20 rounds straight up, and it basically will do a good job of holding on to your magazine very well into the gun, because it has a little duckbill set up like this, and basically just snaps in there just like a standard AK-47 type magazine does. The problem is a lot of metal and polymer magazines for years and years were created, and they were really rough manufactured. You had to bend the feed lips to make them feed straight and everything like that, and it just was not a good deal. So that's a good consideration to make, is get a Tapco 20 round magazine to start with. Then ProMag came through and did their own version of a 40 round magazine, which I have installed here, and built the same way. I had to make a couple of minor modifications to the back area here, and then with my Dremel tool to the front area, obviously with the magazine unloaded area here, so it'll fit up into the stock. And if you don't know how to use a Dremel tool, a gunsmith can probably help you with that, but go slow, don't take off too much. It's easier to take more off than it is to try to replace and build up material later. That's just a good machinist credo there when it comes to doing any kind of modification to any kind of metal or polymer like this. But I had to modify both of these magazines to fit correctly. They feed pretty flawlessly though, and that's one thing that you'll deal with this, because it's not designed to take these SKSs are not designed to take these magazines. They're designed to take the fixed 10 round magazines. But with these detachable magazines, you'll still be walking in tall cotton, because the manufacturers have gone the extra step to make sure these are reliable and as fail-proof as possibly can be. Nothing gives you the same reliability though as the fixed 10 round magazines, but if you like high cap magazines and can own them in your state, I'd recommend to look at one of the Tapco or the ProMag magazines. They're not our sponsors, but they are definitely considerations to make. So this is a completely compliant Russian SKS. I've got just a regular scope mount on it. This does not have any kind of fancy tri-rails right here. 6-power fixed scope. I have a 6-power fixed scope on my other Chinese version. Fantastic rifle, can get out there. And another word about these extended cap, high cap magazines, extended magazines like this, is you're going to traditionally want to fire a smaller, lighter grain projectile in here. What I mean by that is don't shoot the 154 grain Wolf. Typically your soft points won't feed as well in these magazines as your hollow points or Full Metal Jacket points will. But if you're coyote hunting, you can still get 125 grain soft point foreign ammunition like this that's commercial grade and still be in good shape. For this episode of Gun Tales, I'm Dustin Warnke. Feel free to visit our website, and thank you so much for watching us today.